Hi guys, welcome to the Watch Hobbies channel. So today I'm going to be looking at the Rolex Air King. This is the new one from Basel 2016 and it was probably one of the most controversial releases this year. Okay, so the case of the watch is basically shared with the Milgauss. It's identical except for the way it's finished. So in terms of size, if you've ever worn a Milgauss, then you'll know how this watch is going to wear. It has a 40mm diameter, and lug to lug is actually just about 48.5mm, so around about 49mm, so not too long. And then the depth of the case is actually around about 12 or 13mm, so a nice height to it. It's not too thick, but it's not a thin watch by any means. It's certainly not as thin as something like a Patek or something like that, but it does have kind of an elegance to the side of the case because of the nice shapes going on. I like how everything's curved. The crown is nothing particularly to write home about. It's just a standard unscrew it. There's no extra seals on display like you would get on one of the Rolex divers, and you just pull it to the first position, so there's definitely no extra seals there, so it must be screwed down in order to provide the 100 meters water resistance of the watch. The crystal is sapphire and it does slightly protrude from the bezel. It doesn't have any anti-reflective coating, so it does have a tendency to reflect, as you can see here. But it's not terrible. This is probably the worst type of conditions that you would actually see it under, because I've got such bright lights going on here. But on a sunny day, I'm sure it won't be too bad, but you might just need to move your wrist a little bit just to see the time in certain circumstances. The brush of the case here is the main difference between this and the Milgauss. So it has a satinized top lug area, and then the rest of it is the same. So we have the bezel, which is polished, and we have the sides, which are highly polished as well. So those give us, a really nice sort of dressy versus tool watch look. I think it's a really versatile sort of watch. The crystal, of course, is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, so do apologise if there's any fingerprints from me handling it here. But that's the case overall, which for me is a nice size. It wears well even on a wrist such as mine, which you'll see shortly. The bracelet of the watch is the standard oyster type that we're used to with Rolex, so nothing too different here, but that's because it's such a great bracelet. The way that the end links integrate with the lugs, it just works really nicely, and everything is satin. The sides are polished, which is quite common. But the main difference with this strap, this bracelet, over say an Oyster Perpetual, which wears a very similar bracelet, is that this clasp has an easy link. So this clasp is not new for 2016, but it's one of the only models in the Rolex range that actually wears this clasp at the moment. It doesn't have any flip lock section like the divers do, so you have to actually just literally pull it, and that's how you open this clasp. It doesn't have any extra sections to it that go up and over or anything like that. It does have sort of a hinged section here which is spring mounted, feels very solid, and it basically just locks into place here like so. So you can see it sort of latches on. It's very secure, but if the clasp was to open unintentionally, then you do have this section here to keep the watch on your wrist, hopefully. So it's still nice and secure, but just not as secure as say one of the Rolex divers, which have an extra flip lock extension. The watch clasp here does have the easy link though, so so it's nice and comfortable on a hot day. If your wrist expands, literally just pop it out and you've got an extra ½ centimeter, and then when you want to pop it back in, it's a little bit fiddly now because it's got a sticker on it, but when you want to pop it back in, you just flip it back over and click it into place. Everything, as always with Rolex, has a stupidly solid click into place. It all works really well, really nicely. So I think there's no worries with this clasp, but it is a little bit different to the divers models if you are used to those. Okay, so the dial of the watch is probably the most controversial point of it. Some people love it, some people hate it. Now, it's based around the theme of a pilot's watch style, so it does have the Arabic numerals. They don't exactly match because you've got a 5, 10 and then a massive 3, and a 20, 25 and then a massive 6 and so on. So you do have the 369 dial of, say, the Explorer look here, but with some numbers that don't particularly match to it. And that, I think, is what causes the most controversy, because I've heard people call it a mess, and some people that say, oh no, it's totally great. I think Rolex are sort of thinking out of the box and it looks totally different. Well, at first when I saw it, I didn't really like it. It's grown on me, definitely. Would I rather have the standard numbers? Well, maybe. I'm not too sure, but you know, this is how it looks at the end of the day. It doesn't, however, look anything like the Air King from a few years ago. One of my friends bought recently an older Air King for his girlfriend, and that's just a very dainty 34mm standard sort of looking 3-hand watch, which doesn't have anything to cause any comment of dismay, you know, whereas this watch, you look at it and you either love it or you hate it. Other things you have are the bright yellow Rolex coronet at the top, so you know that's something different as well. And then you've got the green text matching with the green seconds hand which is going around. I don't know, it's a bit of a mishmash, but it kind of works because what it does is it separates this watch totally from the rest of the Rolex range. And I think in some cases, in some ways that's nice. You know, we don't want the same watches all the time and the same things being spouted out by all these companies. You know, sometimes it's nice for a break from the norm. You have the original style Air King text, you know, so it does try to replicate that at least, but that's probably the only commonality between the original sort of Air Kings and this model. The one thing I do wish was different on this watch is the luminescence. So I do like that we've got the 369 in white gold. I think they look great, but the 5 to 55 markers, the ones that are in between the white gold markers, they aren't actually luminescent, and it means that the only luminescence we have going on is the triangle at 12, and then also the hands and the second, so the second hand, basically the minute hand and the hour hand, and that's it. There's no other lume on the dial. So the triangle does give you a reference of where the hands are at in pitch black, you know, but it's not particularly full of lume, this watch, and I just think that's a bit of a shame, because Arabic numerals, when they're lumed, they always look amazing, no matter whether it was 5, 10 to 55 or 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever. I always really like that. I have a Breitling Aerospace with the loomed Arabics, and I really love how it looks. So for me, it's a little bit of a shame, you know, that they didn't actually go all out and loom the dial. That's probably meant for me with this watch. But saying that, you know, that's just how it is. I can't change that. So I'm not going to go getting somebody to take it apart and loom all the numerals, because that'll ruin my warranty and probably won't look totally, you know, factory anyway. So it's just one of those things. If you're a bit of a loom freak, then you're probably not going to like this watch. It is a bit of a shame. But at the same time, you know, again, I think what they've really done here is just try to separate this model from the rest of the range. The movement on this one is actually the 3131. It's the more anti-magnetic type of movement that Rolex produces. I think it's the same as the Milgauss, and therefore you've got the parachrom hairsprings, you've got the overcoil which keeps the regulation sort of in any position. You've got all these different things going on, and I believe there's a sort of iron core in there as well to really help with the anti-magnetism. So it's very similar to the Milgauss in this respect. I wouldn't have thought it's really any different at all, actually. And therefore, you know, it goes with the pilot's watch theme. Now, whether you see this as a pilot's watch is your choice, but I have found this watch to be incredibly accurate. So it's well within the -2, +2 standards that Rolex now have. So basically, Rolex now tend to regulate the movement, case the watch, and then sort of regulate it again inside the case, so that it's all 100% within -2, +2 specs. So in terms of wearability, this is how the watch looks on my 6.75 inch wrist. Now I haven't actually adjusted the bracelet, which doesn't help. However, if I hold it like that, you do get a good sense of it. And you can see it doesn't wear terribly tall on the wrist, and it does have a nice sort of profile which would definitely fit with a wrist such as mine, which is quite small. You know, it's definitely not a manly massive wrist. It's quite dainty, but you know, even a watch this size, I was expecting it to look a lot more awkward on my wrist, but actually it wears pretty well. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that look at the Rolex Air King from 2016. This model, as I said at the beginning, was quite controversial, but for me, when I first saw it in pictures, it really didn't appeal that much. I was a bit like, what are you doing, Rolex? And then when I saw it in the case display at Basel, it really appealed. Now I actually have one in my possession. I'm still debating whether it's going to fit into my collection at the minute, so that's why you still see the stickers on. I'm sorry that they're still on, but I just can't make up my mind whether it's actually going to work for me as a watch I would wear right now, hence why I'm actually not taking the stickers off. But forgetting all that, as the watch, you know, as I look at the watch, I do actually very much like it. I do wish they'd actually added some luminescence to the dial, as I mentioned, but apart from that, I think they've really sort of hit a good sort of niche, I would say. You know, not all watches are for everybody, and there are some people out there that do like that sort of more niche products, and this is definitely, if you look at the Rolex range, this is definitely a bit of a break from the norm for them, which in my opinion is a good thing. You know, it's not always great to have the same old churning out black and steel watches all the time. The Milgauss range has always been a bit of a sort of different one anyway. I mean, it's always had that sort of crazy lightning can, and when they brought the new models out sort of in this era, you know, we've now got sort of blue and green versions. So although the Air King obviously isn't a Milgauss, it's based very much around it, and it adds to that sort of theme of Rolex breaking away from the norm, and I really don't see a problem with that at all. It wears well, it's a really nice size, obviously great quality being a Rolex. I like the new clasp, which does have the Easy Link but just has no extra sort of flip lock to it. It's not a dive watch, let's face it. It's still 100 meters water resistant, being an oyster case, but it's not a diver's watch. It's just a, you know, it's obviously based around the pilot's theme, that type of thing. But I really do like it. I think the movement in there is, we know it's robust and solid. So, you know, all in all, if you're looking for sort of an alternative to an Explorer, this would be, in my opinion, that watch. You know, maybe an alternative to, say, some kind of Aquaterra, or, you know, one of their Omega's range of watches which are anti-magnetic and things like that, because the Air King is obviously anti-magnetic as well. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'm interested to hear your comments. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well, because obviously I'll be bringing you more reviews as time goes on. And also check out my Instagram, which is @WatchHobbyist. Thanks, I'll see you again soon.